Eugene.
Thanks for coming.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
So first, I want to start with the title of our session here. Can you give me the headline on what the overall state of play is in Virginia when we think of energy?
Sure. And interesting to follow the director because I think he hit on a lot of things that I think most of us probably understand. I think Virginia's in a really unique situation right now. Lots of opportunity, but a lot of challenges. I think everybody understands that there's the load growth, and again, the director mentioned, over 5%. I think he quoted 6.5% load growth. We haven't seen that in my lifetime, and I've been at this about 30 years. So you have this wonderful opportunity that's out there of potentially bringing in new businesses in Virginia as a Commonwealth, maintaining its place as being a wonderful place to do business. But it's a challenge in how are we going to serve this and how are we going to meet it. At the same time, you've got a new administration that's coming in, and they need to figure out how are we going to navigate that. And again, I think you have to give them some time to figure that out. But we really see it as an opportunity. But again, it's also a challenge. And so how do you figure out what's the right balance of addressing some of these problems? And, I think there's a lot of solutions. I think as you heard the director say, there's a lot of things you can do. I think what we feel is to focus on what can be done today. Because we can talk about some things and, nuclear and things like that, but that stuff, fusion, right? That stuff's going to be decades, years away. But what can you do today? And so I think Virginia has this challenge right now. What are we going to do? And I think he's right. It's what do the people want to have happen? And so we view that there are some things that can be done. One of the things that we think that plays into, as he said, that you can do right now that alleviates some of the pressure because you have all this demand, and how are you going to meet it is to allow some level of customer choice. So you have a certain group of customers, we think of them as commercial industrials, we kind of use the acronym C&I, and let them choose so they're not having to buy from Dominion. Because right now, Virginia imports 30% of the power that it needs. That's a lot, right? Well, let's put a little escape valve on that and let these customers choose how can I buy my power? Do I want to buy it in a different manner? So it's a really unique time. It's kind of exciting. In some ways, you hope you live through these times, but it'd be interesting to see kind of where we end up.
So to your point, this is a pivotal time for energy in Virginia. Can you talk me through some of the highlights of what competition and limited retail choice mean and why it's important to Virginians to consider this?
Yeah, I work for Shell, and we do this, frankly, around the globe. We're in all kinds of countries and various levels of competition. And I think most people in this room would agree that competition generally is a very good thing, right? Brings innovation, brings down cost. And so we believe that allowing for some level of retail choice for customers to choose, hey, how do I procure? When do I procure? What does that look like? Is a good thing. Now, to be clear, we're not talking about, and this is kind of these buzzwords that comes out, we're not talking about deregulation, right? Dominion, AEP, co-op, so stay here. It's allowing a certain group of customers, and this, in our example, the commercial industrial sectors, tend to be very sophisticated buyers, giving them the flexibility to procure what they want, how they want, when they want. I was had dinner the other night, and we were talking with someone that, Dominion can only offer a tariff that's out there, it's published, and they have to offer it to everyone else. But what if you have a customer who's advanced manufacturing, they're coming here, and they've got a wonderful technology, but for the first couple of years, they really need to invest in hiring the right talent, building out the facility. They need to keep their costs low. Well, we can structure a contract that says, hey, the first couple of years, we'll charge you this, and that couple of years, we'll charge you that. It's still the same cost. We're shifting, but it helps that customer to meet their needs. And so I think being able to provide that flexibility to customers, we can put, structures in place where someone says, well, I have a budget, and if prices ever go above this price, that's bad for me. Okay, well, I can put a cap on that, put a floor on it. We can do, third party can offer so much more. And so that's really what we're talking about, is providing that flexibility.
Okay, so then what's the biggest challenge or opportunity as well that Virginia faces when it comes to the power sector? And can Virginians do anything to address this?
Certainly you can, right? We're humans. We have freedom of choice. And again, I think the director highlighted a lot of different opportunities that are out there. But I think a lot of it is about having open dialogue. right? And in the open, I'm looking in the back, I see him just like, but having open conversations about what is and isn't happening. These are very complex issues, at least on the surface. If you spend a little time, it's really not. Talking about supply and demand, right? These are not super complex, but you have to take the time to invest and understand what is driving some of this. And again, the situation that Virginia finds itself in is, again, you have this massive opportunity of growth. And that growth can bring tax dollars, right? It can bring jobs. I mean, these are good things, but Virginia has a challenge. And if you don't get this right, you will crowd out investment. And I think that's what we see. I serve a lot of customers who are in Virginia. I don't serve them today, but are in other jurisdictions, and they want us to serve them. And I'm like, well, I can't. And people are making decisions, and some of these are, billion-dollar decisions on where am I going to build this thing. And if there's no clarity and there's no certainty, markets like certainty, they're going to go other places. They're going to go to Georgia. They're going to go to Ohio. They're going to go to Texas. And so I think it's about having that open conversation and being honest. I think there's 1,000 things we can do, right? But what are the least amount of things that we should do to get this right today? Because what you don't want to do, at least our experience is, you don't want to have radical change, because it's going to often have unintended consequences, because the markets are very complex. So what are incremental changes that you can make that allow you to take a step in the right direction? And so we think something like retail choices, is an easy step. It's not very complex, and it's something you can do now.
So speaking of open conversations, the Virginia Assembly is in session right now, and we know they're looking at various options to address some of the challenges you just talked about. Are there options at this point that you think they really should consider?
I do, and I'm not gonna lie. I don't have all the bills. I'm not from Virginia, but certainly there are a lot of interesting bills out there. Delegate Lopez has a bill that is touching on this retail choice aspect, where right now it's very cumbersome for a customer to choose to leave someone, because if you leave, you have to give a 5-year notice if you ever want to go back. Well, who's gonna make those decisions, right? It just blocks you out, right? Because you're like, well, I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm never going to leave. So there's a bill that looks to say, okay, well, look, let's make that 12 months, right? I can move in and out between Dominion and someone else 12 months. That seems pretty simple. I think Senator Van Valkenburg has a bill that allows smaller commercial industrial customers to aggregate. So right now there's a threshold where you can't go out and buy power if you're below a certain size. Well, now you can aggregate up, get 2 or 3 companies together and say, okay, we're now of a size we can go shop. So again, making it easier for folks to have choice. And then there's a host of other, bills. I think Senator Lucas has an interesting bill. DeSteph has some bills. Things that are addressing, again, different parts. So some of them are about, bringing batteries to market and different types of technology. There's a lot of stuff that's going on out there, for me to opine on what's going to get through, who knows? But I think it feels like there's a lot of energy behind it, and it feels like there's a lot of focus on it. So I'm optimistic that something will get done and allow Virginia to stay a wonderful place to do business.
Awesome. Well, we really want to thank you for coming today to talk about what it is that Shell's doing in Virginia, and to give attendees more knowledge about what it is you want to do next in the future.
Sounds great.
Thanks. And we are unfortunately out of time, but not for this event, just this conversation. And we look forward to having you back here soon.
Sounds great.
Great.
Thank you.